Welcome back to You and Your Money. Today I'm happy to have on as my guest officials from the Inland Revenue Department. Roger Forbes is the Chief Valuation Officer and Controller of Inland Revenue. Also Chandra Strawn, Chief Revenue and Finance Officer, and Ralph Munro, who's a Superintendent with Customs, but on secondment to the department. As we went into that break, we began talking about the tax compliance certificate. And first of all, this is another new measure that's come on stream. But why is it important for businesses to have this compliance certificate? And then how do you go about applying for it?
Well, it is important to get a certificate, Mr. Sawyer, because if you want to do business with the government of the Bahamas, the law states that you must be in compliance. The reality is that there are a number of persons within the business community who would have owed government entities and government departments substantial amount of taxes. And it is a measure under the Financial Administration and Audit Act to ensure that before you can even be considered to bid on a contract, that you don't owe the people of the Bahamas any money. Or if you do, you've made the arrangement to settle those arrears. And so that is what the whole object of the amendment is for.
We talked about applying. Applying is a simple process. You can go online to www.taxcompliancecertificate.com and apply online, or you can come in and fill out the forms. It's a 2-day process, meaning there's a 2-day turnaround while we check our sister agencies to ensure that everything is good, and then we issue the tax compliance certificate to the business owner.
So if you are in business with the government or intend to get into business with the government, you certainly need to go on and apply for this, or come in and apply for this immediately.
That's correct.
Okay, so scenario. Let's say you do have some outstanding taxes owed, and that's quite a lot considering
Right.
the various agencies that are under that banner. But if you do owe, and you are in business with the government, whether you're signing a contract or you have a contract, how does that affect your business? Are you completely out of the game, or what happens?
Not necessarily. It means we refer you back to the agency that has an issue with you, and we refer you there so you can make whatever arrangements, whatever agreements you need to make with that agency. So being in compliant, it may not mean you're debt-free totally, but that you have a satisfactory agreement with the agency in question.
Okay. And how often do you need to apply for this certificate? If you're in business, does it matter the size of the contract or the length of time you're in business with government? How often do you need to apply for this certificate?
Well, the certificate is good for either 1 month or 6 months. The $10,000 is the threshold. So if you're under a contract for, say, $10,000 and more, then the time limit is 1 month.
So $10,000 or more, you have to apply monthly.
Right.
That seems like a lot. That seems like that's something else now that you have to consider and factor in every month.
Yes, the reality is, Mr. Sawyer, we're trying to ensure that there's no leakages. We are running a tight ship. For too long, we've been seen as a people who can just allow our bills to run on infinitely, and we're saying, no, it's a new day. We want to be fiscally prudent, and we want to have good management. So we're keeping you, so to speak, on a tightrope.
Any consideration to what is a bad debt? For instance, if I'm in the kind of business that's import-export, I'm dealing with customs on a daily, monthly, weekly basis, however often, and that's an ongoing situation. At what point is a debt incurred? I mean, how do I know, or how is it determined at what point that I do owe an agency, whether it's road traffic or any of these agencies?
Well, I'll give you an example with respect to business license, for example. The law specifies that the application for business license should be made by the end of January, and payment should be made by the end of March. So therefore, if the payment is not made by the end of March, it becomes overdue, right? Now, so after that threshold, we would expect persons to come in if there are challenges or difficulties, and so that we could settle that. Now, one of the other thing too, there are penalties when one is late. So to avoid penalties, they need to ensure that they pay on time.
So in essence, you just need to know what your
Obligations.
are per agency
And when they're due.
and when they are due. Okay, again, just remind us which agencies refer to that tax compliance certificate. When I apply, I need to be cleared by the following agencies.
Right, the agencies are the real property tax, business license, and the department that governs those is the Department of Inland Revenue. Then you have the National Insurance, you have the road traffic, you have immigration, is there another one? And you have the Customs Department.
He said, and of course, value-added tax.
And value-added tax. Right, that's it. Right. Value-added
It
tax.
really has changed the landscape of business for a lot of people, and people may argue, oh, it seems like doing business is becoming a lot more complicated. But how do you counter that, and how do you explain to people what it is that you're trying to do and why this is so important?
So I always believe that we are a first world country, or at least we think so. And if we want to be first world country, then it means that we're going to have to take our responsibility serious as businesses and as citizens. For instance, if you go in Singapore, you'd find that persons who are not compliant can actually have the imposition of penalties that may involve jail time. That's how serious they are. Mm-hmm. Of course, we like to pride ourselves in being a first world country, but it's going to cost you something. We need a change in culture. And so that is what we intend to do, to educate the public that you can have the best and the niceties of life, but you must be prepared to pay your way.
Well, folks, I thank you so much for sharing with us today. I'm sure that people who are in business or thinking about getting into business certainly have a lot to think about. And it does all go back to a very important point. In order for us to keep our country operating, we've got to pay our taxes. And so that's what you're here to do, to ensure that people are compliant and certainly that the necessary controls are in place. Thank you so very much. A lot to digest, but we thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you, Tom.
That's going to do it for this edition of You and Your Money. As always, we thank you so much for joining us.